No sane man goes into a marriage these days because he has next to no rights within that marriage. The woman can just pick up the phone anytime she feels like and make a false accusation of domestic violence. And in Spain, for example, the police are legally obliged to remove the man from the house. There's a Freudian slip. Remove the man from the house. As soon as the woman rings the police, they have to remove him. They have to jail him. I think it's for at least 48 hours. He then has to appear before a judge. And if he can't prove to the judge that he didn't domestically abuse her, then he can't go back to his house. That's it, the marriage is over. And she can then, of course, deny him access to his children. Spain is pretty much, it's the worst country in the world now. And but at least there are groups fighting back against this, consisting of grandparents, men, children who've grown up, anyway, all sorts of groups. But marriage these days is a racket. It's not really supported by the church. They'll marry you for the money, but they don't support marriage. Does anyone hear them complaining about divorce and the scandal of tens of millions of children and fathers and grandparents all over the world being denied access to each other by evil women who can just completely ignore the law? In Japan, for example, where if a woman is ordered to allow the man to see his children once every 2 weeks, she can defy that law. That she doesn't have to abide by it. And women all over the Western world defy these laws anyway, and they get away with it. They can commit one act of contempt of court after another after another. So why the hell would a man go into a marriage? There's no point getting married unless you intend having children. And when you have no rights in the event of a divorce, with regards to your relationship with your children, what's the point? But anyway, politicians all over all over the world have enacted laws specifically designed to trash marriage. I'll just give you two laws. One from Britain, the Family Law Act of 1996. Now, the Labour Party, this was a Conservative Act, and a Conservative minister admitted at the government dispatch box that domestic violence was at the heart of this legislation. And even though the law is written in a neutral manner, what it means, we all know how politicians view domestic violence. It's something that men do to women, and there are only a handful of politicians who actually point out that it's a two-way street. And Labour introduced an amendment into this bill based solely on domestic violence, which was passed into law. In the United States, you have VAWA, of course, that was passed in 1994, signed by Bill Clinton. That's the Violence Against Women Act. God knows how many marriages that's led to the destruction of. But Joe Biden, who pushed it through Congress, boasted that it's the piece of law he's most proud of. It wasn't even until 2012 when they included lesbians in this law. So that law was designed to destroy the family. Marriage has become a racket because it's a racket when it turns into divorce. And it's also a racket for the advertising industry and for corporations. You think of it like this: the corporation, so you've got a man living with his parents, woman living with her parents, and corporations want them to get married, okay, for a very, very obvious reason. They get married, and you've got a corporation that sells washing machines, microwaves, fridge freezers, whatever. They want that couple to get out of their parents' houses, buy their own house, and purchase their products. And then they want them to divorce. And that's going to lead on to the advertising industry. They want them to divorce so that the man's kicked out of the house, then he has to get another apartment, and he has to buy more stuff for his apartment. More fridges, more washing machines. So the more marriages, the more money they make. The more divorce, the more money they make. And if you look at the mix of advertising, it's half of it seems to be aimed at cozy couples, going out doing couple things, happy couples. That's the promotion of marriage. And then you've got all those adverts, the masses of adverts that portray men as morons and that portray women as being oh so superior. And this is designed to persuade women that they're married to a moron. And it works because it wears them down psychologically. So that's corporations and the advertising industry's interest in all this. The state's interest in this is because when you destroy a marriage you can create more women have to go out to work. They're then forced into the workplace. So more tax is paid to pay off the government's bloody loans. So the bankers are happy because the government gets more credit to take out more loans from these banks. So the same corporations that employ people are happy because women will work for lower pay. Not that they get paid lower pay for equal work to men. They don't. So we all know that the equal pay gap myth is just that. It is a myth. And of course the state can then get children into school ASAP and then brainwash them, indoctrinate. The state then have control of your children, and you have divided families. If you splinter the family, which is the basic building block of any civilized society, you are breaking down that civilized society. You are dividing it, making it easier to rule, and that's just one of the ways that the globalists act. The destruction of the family is vital to them, and if you look at all these organizations, including people like the World Bank, for example, who prattle on and on about domestic violence, they've claimed that 350 million women worldwide suffer from domestic violence. Personally, I doubt that that's correct, but what the fucking hell has domestic violence got to do with the fucking World Bank? The United Nations go on and on about. They're all the globalists are involved in this scam, this domestic violence industry, which I'm going to go into depth about at a later date in the video, because I've been studying this subject on and off for about 25 years. There is nothing to gain for a man in marriage anymore. Nothing. There's no point having children anyway. Your sons are being brought up to believe by man-hating liars like Hillary Clinton that the future's female. That's not a man-hating, well, maybe it's not a lot, but maybe that is going to happen. I suggested in an earlier video, should people even be allowed to have sons anymore? Maybe if women were told all of a sudden by parliaments all over the world, you can no longer have sons, they're toxic as fuck. They're fucking masculine. They grow up to be domestically violent, rapists and paedophiles, so you're only allowed to have daughters. We can genetically mess around with your embryos or whatever, and we can make sure that you only have female children. Maybe then women and men would get into their thick, stupid skulls that this hate campaign against fatherhood and men and marriage and women and children and all society, it's a hate campaign against everyone. What's it going to take for people to wake up? Hillary Clinton declares that the future's female. What's the attitude of women towards that? They think it's fantastic. She's just said something marvellously clever. So what's the point of having a son? He's going to be discriminated against at every single stage of the way, and it's absolutely pointless. But where are the complaints from politicians about the divorce industry, the divorce racket? The fact is that they're all taken care of by the legal lobby. The legal lobby throughout the world is one of the most powerful lobbies there is. What they get, want, they get. And if you look at the House of Commons, for example, you look at politics all over the world, and the political chambers, both upper and lower, are filled with lawyers. They have a vested interest in helping out their buddies. Where's the church on this? Yeah, they'll fucking marry you, the fucking sods. They'll marry you, but why aren't they speaking out against the divorce industry? Why aren't they helping out, trying to help out grandparents being denied access to their grandchildren? Why aren't they speaking out about this scandal? Why aren't the media saying anything about it? As I've said before, the media consists of only two breeds of creature: man-hating women and fucking cowardly males who won't stand up to them. And the irony is, the media is owned in Britain, at any rate, almost in its entirety by men. Those men don't give a fuck. I should have taken notes to do this, because I'm going off on tangents here, and I could speak about this subject all day long. It makes me fucking sick. Anyway, false accusations of domestic violence are going to continue to fuel the divorce industry, and yet when you mention domestic violence against women on the TV or in newspapers and ignore the rest of it, men get on their high horses and start boasting about what they do if they caught a man hitting a woman. They just can't get it to their thick skulls. It can affect their marriage. And young men who go into marriage these days, you end up in the fucking divorce courts, don't look to me for sympathy whatsoever if you can't be bothered watching. Okay? If I were the divorce court judge, this is how I'd treat you.
Sie sind ja ein Seriolum!